So guys, a very good evening to everybody who is joined in a part of today's masterclass. We are going to get the session started now. So I'm just going to give you a brief about AntWak. We are a tech company and we offer a broad range of courses ranging between cybersecurity, digital marketing, and data engineering. In addition to that, we are also doing dedicated bootcamp courses. The link will be shared in the chat window. Today's event is going to be done by Mr. Dinakar. The event is going to be about what are the skills required to become a cybersecurity professional today. A quick introduction about him, that he has more than over 6 years of experience in the digital workplace. He's been in the industry for quite some time, and he comes with a specialty around identity and access management and many other domains within cybersecurity. Additionally, he believes in giving back to the community. I've had the privilege and pleasure to have interacted with him on a couple of occasions, and I can't wait for him to get our session started. A very warm welcome to you, Dinakar, to AntWak's platform. I have Himanshu and Zaki, who will be helping you throughout the session. So guys, this is an interactive session. So I would request you guys to start posting your questions in the chat, and Zaki and Himanshu both will help you answer those questions. So let's make it interactive, get your questions done. Please don't unmute yourself unless and until it's required. If it's required, please raise your hands and we'll help you unmute. Dinakar, once again, good evening. Welcome. Please take it off.
Thank you, Kaushik. Thanks, Saki and Himanshu. So guys, I'm assuming everyone who's in the audience is fresh in the industry, or someone who's just entered the industry and then want to shift towards the cybersecurity. So before we understand what and what are the skills and how do I get into the cybersecurity, I think it's very essential to understand what is cybersecurity in general. So I know there are a lot of thoughts, misconceptions as well, and out there, which says that ethical hacking is cybersecurity, and it's always about hacking things, hacking systems. So if you would probably have a lot of questions on these lines as well. You could definitely post these questions on the chat, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. So as I said before that, let's basically talk about what is security. So let me share my screen and then let's get started. Okay, so guys, do you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Great. So well, let's talk about an organization in general, right? So physically, what do we see in an organization? We see, let's keep it very simple. What do we see in an organization? We see some the parapet walls around the office, and then you see a building which is centrally located somewhere, and then you need permissions to enter into the building, be it showing your ID card or whatever. So let's say you have an organization which is something like this, right? And then you have multiple entities. Let's talk about IT environment in general. So you have multiple entities within this perimeter. This is called as a perimeter. This is basically your 5th class, 6th class maths. So that's basically, you remember calculating the perimeter of the circle and all that, right? So similarly, this is called as a perimeter of an organization. So and then the multiple entities within your organizations, right? So you have a lot of users, basically a lot of employees who will be using multiple machines, be it their mobile phones, or be it their laptops, desktops, anything. And then you have servers, a lot of servers which handle their own tasks, hosting applications, and multiple some more assets of the organization, which would be definitely within this organization. What is cybersecurity? Any threat, let's say there is an external actor, someone like this, could be a bad guy, could be a good guy, we don't know it at this point. Someone who's trying to access or let's say, let's not talk about access, but let's say is trying to contact a person. So how does he contact? He definitely uses a system. He definitely needs a media to communicate with the person within the organization, right? So how does he contact? It could be Teams, which is something like WhatsApp. You can say it's something like WhatsApp, wherein you chat on a daily basis. I'm sure with the trend of online classes, you must have definitely heard about Microsoft Teams. So something like this, wherein a user who's outside the organization tries to contact someone inside the organization. Now, how do you understand that this person is a legitimate user or a legitimate person or not? Or if this person is trying to manipulate our systems to hack, or let's say to compromise the system. What's compromising a system? Basically using the weaknesses of the system to ensure that the system is down, or use it for bad purposes for within the organization or outside the organization, right? So there's always a structure. There's one thing that I would want you to understand, is that security is layered. So you don't be in an impression that this square box, which I call as perimeter, which is somewhere synonymous to a firewall, which you've definitely heard, is the only level of security for organizations, or for businesses here. So there's something called as layered security, which says that you have multiple layers of security, which means that you might have two different firewalls. Considering this is a firewall, your perimeter as a firewall. And then for desktops, for your laptops, let's say if this user is trying to access, let's say, what did we talk about? We said the user is trying to contact using Teams, which is something like WhatsApp. Okay, so let's say he's trying to contact using Teams. There's definitely something, a security control here as well, which is also called as an org to org federation, which basically says that, okay, there's some administrator sitting somewhere here who's managing all this. An administrator says, okay, if this is company A, I can allow my users to contact company A, and people from company A to be contacted by my users. So this is something that is preset. And so this is another layer of security that we're talking about. Let's say if this is this contact is being done through an email, then you have email security. So email has a different level of let's say firewalls, let's say email security gateways. You have multiple security gateways here as well to detect, track, and there's something called as quarantining, but let's say for blocking malicious or spam based emails, right? So now, do we understand what is cybersecurity? In a nutshell, cybersecurity is basically securing your systems, securing your users. Users are basically employees of the company, to from the threats outside the organization. Is that it? I mean, am I just securing my people from people outside the organization? Yes, but just it's not just limited to that. Let's say in a hypothetical scenario, you don't want two different departments within your organization to communicate with each other. Let's say this is one department, it has its own servers, its own users, and then you have another department. You can block within the organization as well. Let's say the sales and the research and development department. Yeah, something like this. So in a nutshell, what is cybersecurity? It is protecting your users, your people, from threats outside, as well as ensuring that your information is not leaked outside. Let's say you're working on a new product, your organization has invested heavily on a product, and that product is there, and there are some people who are trying to who are working on that product development. You've spent a lot on that. Now there is a third party actor somewhere here who's trying to steal that information, who might be your rival. In a hypothetical scenario, again, if you are MTR masalas and then there is MDH masala, you've come up with a new masala. What if this new company, this another masala company tries to get this ingredients of your new masala? Whatever you've invested in, your time, your resources, everything is gone because they have already launched your idea, right? So this it's not just talking about threats from outside, but it is also threats from inside. So ensuring that your users do not leak your information outside as well, right? So we've talked about cybersecurity, but this is a typical scenario where this was basically the kind of an environment, an IT environment which we used to have maybe around 7 to 8 years ago, where everything was within the organization's perimeter, within the four walls of your office, which is basically called as on-premises. But today, there's something big. There's something bigger than what we're talking at this point. There is something called as cloud. I'm sure you've definitely heard about that part, which says cloud. Yeah, this is still your organization, but not in your organization's physical boundaries. So where is your information? It is outside your physical boundaries, outside the physical boundaries of your organization. Now, what is the scenario? Here I have firewalls, but what is protecting me or protecting my data if my data is somewhere outside? Here comes your virtual firewalls. It is the same. So guys, when you think about, or when someone talks about a cloud is nothing. I would say it's not a magic which has come just out of nowhere. These are the same services. What did we talk about? We talked about firewalls. We talked about email security. We talked about federation. We talked about communication between two entities, one within the organization and the other outside the organization. You have exactly the same services being rendered from the cloud. Now, what do I mean by a service? Service is basically something that you get without really investing heavily on this firewalls. You do have a firewall here. But then it's virtual. You don't have to host a server, host a computer, have a computer physically and all that. Right? Now, because your information has started being virtual, threats are more. Now you don't know if this can govern this area as well, although it can, but you never know. So now your threat landscape, your threats have increased, and that is why there's a lot of and yes, another point is people have started working remotely with the new pandemic situation. A lot of people started working from their homes, started working from multiple devices. When I say multiple devices, you all of you have your Gmail account, right? So you can log in with your Gmail account on your computer as well as on your phone. If you have a tablet, you log in with your tablet. But and another scenario here, if you log in into your Gmail, you're not typically asked to enter your credentials again when you log in into your G Drive, right? Google Drive or let's say Google Photos. So that's again improving users' experience. There's something called as a single sign-on that has that is basically running the show behind it. That's what is called as that's a part of identity and access management, which Kaushik was talking about. Yeah. So with all this kind of scenarios, right? There's a lot of demand towards cybersecurity to understand, to ensure that the data is not lost. You might be using a company laptop, right? But you are also using company's email from your personal mobile. That doesn't make the company owner of your mobile, but the company is the owner of the data in your email. right? So so data is everywhere. It's in your mobile, it's in your personal laptop, it's in your work laptop, it's literally everywhere. So the possibility of leak of information is much, much, much higher at this point. That is the reason you have a lot of scope within cybersecurity for the next at least 6 to 7 years and growing. It will definitely grow with the kind of landscapes that we have at this point, right? So this is something that we're talking about, cybersecurity, right? If you zoom out a bit, what if a person tries to get into your organization physically, in the sense gets into your compound wall, gets into your office, gets into the server room, this server that I'm talking about, there is some person who comes into this room and breaks the server physically or lights it up. Whatever are those security controls that I've taken, right? All of that are of no use, because at the end of the day, my purpose of saving the server is gone. That is where you zoom out a bit and talk about information security. Cybersecurity is basically a part of information security. Now here you have physical access control, physical security of systems and devices. So that is why you have a lot of security. You have if people who have already started working in various organizations, you definitely need to swipe in before you enter into every single area. You swipe in probably at the SES office, and then your office, and then some third floor, fourth floor. That is why you have to swipe, because that's a physical security control, right? So cybersecurity here has a lot of scope because of the increasing landscape. One, second, increasing why do you have a increased threat landscape? What do I mean by threat landscape? Basically, number of threats, number of actors who are trying to compromise your accounts, trying to compromise your systems, and trying to lure your users, fish your users into something else. You definitely would have received messages, emails saying that you've you've earned 100,000 or 1 lakh euros. Please click here to redeem now. That's a typical phishing email. Do you believe that? You don't believe that. Why don't you believe that? Because you know it's wrong. You know you're not that lucky. Definitely. How many of us know people who have won that kind of money? At least zero, maximum one, zero, right? So that's a phishing email. So these are all ways by which you trick users, or you ensure that your systems are compromised. Try to gain access to something so that your systems are down, or hold some information as hostage and ask for money for that information to be released, right? Now, so now I guess we understand what is cybersecurity. Any questions?
Guys, since you're sorry for the interruption, sir. Since you're texting in the chat personally to me and Himanshu, please ask questions to sir. Let's make this interactive, okay?
Wi-Fi using vulnerability. I think I lost this message, but do we use any tool to secure our infra? Well, see, I told you about security at various layers, right? So if you're talking about securing our infra, this is our infra. So if this is the entire infrastructure, if you're talking about the entire infrastructure, yes, firewalls do work here. And there is something called as SIEM, Security Incident and Event Manager. You use tools like that. I'm sure you would have people who are a bit experienced in the industry would have heard about tools like Splunk, a very famous tool. That is a security event manager. You know what it does? It basically monitors everything that comes into the system, everything that comes into your environment. monitors everything and tries to analyze, okay, is this malicious? Is this a bad guy or a good guy? Is this a legitimate connection or a not a legitimate connection? Right? So that is at an organization wide. Again, we talked about emails, right? Within your emails, you have an email security gateway. That is another tool. So you have a lot of tools like ATP, this Microsoft's tool called Advanced Threat Protection. It's now called as Defender for M365. But yeah, you can take it as Defender for M365. So that is another tool that secures your infrastructure from an email perspective. Again, what if we talked about internal threats? I mean, people who are trying to send your information outside the organization, right? For those people, you have something called as data loss prevention or data leak prevention tools. There's something called a Cisco AMP, which is a similar tool. And then antiviruses, which ensure that you don't antivirus. I'm sure you know what it is. So yeah, so you have multiple tools to secure your infrastructure at different levels. As I said, security is always layered. When you think about security, imagine, I'm sure everyone is an Indians here, or let's say a scenario where there is a India-Pakistan border. You went to near a border between India and Pakistan. Now, what's happening here? You see first there is a fencing on the Pakistan side and then fencing on Indian side. There's a no man line, and then you have bunkers where a lot of soldiers are guarding those places, and then you have radars which are continuously monitoring this place. So security in general, my friends, is an approach that is everywhere, regardless of what you're talking about. You could be talking about cybersecurity, or you could be talking about physical security. You could be talking about India, Pakistan also. But it is the same concept that is implemented. So if you really want to get into cybersecurity, I would say security everywhere, every time. In a bookish scenario, it says you ensure that there is security, or rather you're trying to secure yourself all the time. But I would say it is different. Wherever you go, you could be going to a local superstore, let's say a Reliance. Try to identify what are all the security measures do they have. What do they have? They have cameras for continuous monitoring, for all these kind of garments, fabric material. They have a small strip kind of a thing, a metal detector a metal basically that is attached to it. So if you're trying to steal it, your detector will start an alarm, right? So that's another security measure. Similarly, you have multiple security measures. You go to a very big, let's say a shopping mall kind of a thing. You have garments, everything on men's section on one floor, women's section on one floor. But did you observe the gold, diamonds, silver? This is a bit somewhere, I wouldn't say thrown away, but then it has some additional security, some one or two extra security guards and all that, right? So this way, when you try to understand security, it is the same concept that is implemented even here with a different name, right? I hope I answered your question, Sushil. And Pujan, you were talking about single sign-on. SSO is a single sign-on. Basically, I think you were talking about the concept where we were talking about Gmail and G Drive. Yes, you're right. It's a single sign-on solution. Why do we want servers or physical devices?
Sir, there's a general question being asked by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference between cybersecurity and information security? So
yes. Okay. Yes. Let me take that question then. So, guys, cybersecurity. So let's say cybersecurity is basically you have your organization, right? You have your organization. Anything that is related to threats from through the internet. So you have internet, which is everywhere. Anything that is through the internet, you try to safeguard, all your systems, your system resources from threats from the internet. That is when you're talking about cybersecurity. Anything through the internet. But information security, cybersecurity is basically a part of information security. Information at a larger point. You remember I told you about one scenario where I have multiple firewalls, I have multiple security controls. But what if a person physically gets into your office? Or let's say you have implemented all this on your laptop, which is in your bedroom. It is completely safe. It is within your locker. Everyone, I mean, it is completely secure. You've never connected it to the internet, so you're completely secure from cyber threats. What if someone comes, gets into your house, gets into your bedroom, breaks the laptop? Your information is still lost. Now, this is a part of physical security. So physical security, physical access control, and cybersecurity, this combined forms information security. So cybersecurity is what? A part of information security. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. And I have a very big question from Jen. Then where did I stop? What is the most critical stage in cybersecurity? Well, see, criticality basically depends on the information that you're talking about. I'll give you a scenario. You have a house, an independent house, uh, in a good area, and then you have a lot of trees and all outside your home, and there is a good distance between your compound wall and your home. But then you have a hole, let's say, in your bedroom, and that is not that clearly visible, but then yes, there is a hole. So now what is a hole? Hole is basically vulnerability. I did see someone who who has posted that word. Vulnerability is basically a weakness in a system. Okay, so now then there is a threat. What is a threat? A person or a system. Let's in this scenario, let's say it's a person, a burglar, or someone outside who's able to exploit that vulnerability to give a considerable uh, impact on your system, let's say on your house. Okay, now a combination of your vulnerability and your threat, your likeliness of the threat identifying your vulnerability becomes a risk. Now you do say that, right? That okay, no, it's a risk that we go ahead with this. What is the risk? If let's say you have gold ornaments in that bedroom, it's a high risk. Why? Because the value of the commodity that you're talking about is a lot. Let's say you have rice bags now, it's a bit less. Let's say it's an empty house, there's nothing. The risk is very low. Why? Because even if the threat or let's say a hacker tries to get in, or burglar tries to get in into your bedroom, there's nothing that he can do. Right? Now, what is the most critical stage in cybersecurity? Every stage is critical. Every single stage is critical. So with all the scenario, uh, you can send an email to someone in Wipro, someone in Cognizant. That's not a problem. But will they fall for it or not? That is a problem. If you're a hacker, will they fall for it or not? That decides your criticality, right? Similarly, there are a lot of attacks like let's say DDoS attacks, which is distributed denial of service, which affects the performance. So there are a lot of attacks, and every stage is critical. You can never say that this stage is not critical and this stage is critical. I hope I answered your question. And what is a physical firewall? Physical firewall is basically, see, do you guys understand what is a server? Server is basically something that serves a service, in a very simple term, something that serves a service. It's basically a computer where you install something, the way you install games on your computer. Similarly, you install services on a server. So what is a physical server? You have that server somewhere present within your organization, and that is monitoring everything which is going and coming from your organization. Basically, firewall is, everyone would have gone to a national highway, right? You would have seen a toll booth, right? So when there is a toll gate, you find different lanes. One lane for emergency vehicles where you go for ambulance and all that. The other one for heavy trucks. The other one for non-FASTag, FASTag. So a firewall is something like this, wherein everything is channelized. Emails should go through, let's say there is a port for port 25, port 465, there's port 587. Similarly, there are multiple ports for different kinds of emails, right? For SSH is 22, for let's say HTTPS. You let's say access Facebook, https://facebook.com. You are communicating through port number 80. So these ports are similar to the lanes that we were talking about in a toll booth. Okay, so that is a firewall, and physical firewall is something that is physically present, and a virtual firewall is something that is not physically present and is hosted on a cloud. That is it. There's nothing great here. Explain firewall once again, how firewall works. I guess I've answered that question. Cookies trackers are used to take data and give personalized ads, but when I browse in my office laptop, I'm not getting personalized ads. Can you explain why? Yes, because I told you about your machines not communicating, or there are multiple security layers which are blocking unused traffic, or I'll not say unused traffic, but then something that's not relevant. They block all that traffic from your infrastructure also. So that way, when your cookie or something in your computer is trying to communicate to something external, and your SIEMs, or let's say your firewalls, there are your DLPs, there are a lot of systems which identify that, okay, this is not the right uh, uh, right ping or right communication channel, so let's block it. That is the reason you don't see it. I hope I answered your question. Do we need coding background to start career in CS? No, it basically depends on which area you're talking about, Sushil. So they're basically two, or rather on a higher end, three different layers, or three different teams within your cybersecurity. One is called as the blue team, and the other is called as the red team. Okay, so if I'm talking about a blue team, let's say, blue team, basically what it does is that it goes on securing or safeguarding your your infrastructure. So we talked about layered security. Okay, I'm guessing that was a mistake, but okay, if there's anything, please put it in the chat. Yeah, as I was saying, so if we're talking about blue team are the ones who constantly safeguard systems through layers and layers of security. Red team people are the ones who try to break those walls to ensure that they compromise the system. If I say that this is my system, let's take an example of one single system. What does a blue team do is they try to secure it from all possible ways, literally all possible ways. And yeah, it's something like this. And what does a red team guy do? Red team, with the most minimal information, they try to compromise this system. they try to compromise the system. It could be through network, everything that we talked about, right? It could be through network, which includes firewalls, access points, your guest Wi-Fi networks, everything. It could be through, let's say, emails, through a phishing campaign, or it could be on multiple areas, compromising privileged accounts, ensuring that there are some attacks called as password spray attacks, dictionary harvest attacks. Dictionary harvest attacks are basically they take common first names and common last names at company.com. Something like if you're talking about company.a.com, then Abhishek is a common first name, and give me another common Gaurav. Gaurav is another common first name. Kumar and Singh. So there'll be an email to abhishek.kumar at company.com and abhishek.singh at company.com. So similarly, there'll be, this is how a typical phishing campaign is held. Okay. So they could use any kind of a scenario, right? So if you want to get into the red team, you might need coding, depending on what capacity are you trying to operate in. Even here, you might need, but not necessarily, not all the time. There are some areas where you do not need a lot of coding. Okay. And
Sir, Ravi here has a question that he is a Linux and system administrator, and he wants to know what is the first step to get into cybersecurity domain.
okay, if he's a Linux system administrator already, then that's he already has a good start. So it means that he can explore the security space, and there is a role called as VAPT, VAPT. He can try and apply for that, and there are multiple courses out there. For the matter of fact, even AntWak's security program also gives you such kind of skills to understand security in general, to understand cybersecurity in general. And he can definitely get into something like your red teaming, and there are areas within cloud security also, managing your servers, trying to identify vulnerabilities. You know, he can definitely use those areas and get into security. But the first thing that I would recommend is to have a general understanding of every single area of security. And to add on to that, you have a free course on Cisco Networking Academy for essentials of cybersecurity. It's a free course. It's I guess a 10-hour course or so. You can go with that course to understand the basics of it. Yeah. Is that it? Did I answer that question? I still hear about cyber attacks, which the servers are down. How does such attack happen, even with all that security? Okay, that's a great question. I don't see your name. It says Jake, but regardless of how many security controls that you put in, your systems, your users are not 100% secure. No matter what, your systems are not 100% secure. I'll tell you why. Because the way you evolve with your systems, with your security controls, similarly, even the hackers evolve. There would be a new kind of a virus. There can be a new kind of let's say worm that spreads across your organization, and you never know until it compromises an account, until it holds you ransom for some systems. You never know. You would never know that it was a worm or something. And you're talking about okay, in such attacks, there are a lot of attacks which are targeted against a common user, a normal user, a normal receptionist who just comes in, tries to answer calls and goes back. So what happens is they send a phishing email or they try to get their password. So that is the reason a lot of websites ask you to put in a very strong passwords. There was a company which got compromised because the password of a user account was password itself. So that doesn't make sense. That is the first guess that anyone would do, right? So yeah, so that those are one of the reasons why your companies are they still get compromised. But yes, there can be many more reasons. Yes. Okay.
How do you get into SOC is another question, sir.
Yes. Okay. SOC basically, SOC is Security Operations Center. So we talked about SIEM, right? SIEM. I told you about Splunk. Splunk is a part, a SIEM is a part of a Security Operations Center in general. But how do you get into SOC, guys? If you're already working and if you want to switch now, and if you're already working, I would say try to do some research, try to identify what are all the security areas within your job role. Even if you're working in a service desk, even at a customer support, you would have something or the other which has cybersecurity in it. Try to route yourself through that. That is the best way I can probably suggest. Learn more in that area and try to move out. If you think that is not helping you, then go with a proper course um, with cybersecurity and within this area, and I'm sure you can find good roles. Because trust me, if you need 8 people in cybersecurity within the industry, you have only one. So the ratio is 1:8. So there's a high proximity that you will be able to find find a job within security. Okay. Is networking a part of cybersecurity? Well, networking has different levels, my friend. So networks can be network support, can be networks implementation, can be network security. So yes, networks has network security, but not necessarily. Network operations has a bit less to do with cybersecurity than network security itself. But every job role has some or the other amount of security that is involved. Okay, and yeah, I think that is it. So let's talk about something else now. Okay. So whatever is the security control that you're talking about, right? There are 3 major pillars within your cybersecurity. Okay. One is your confidentiality. The other one is integrity. And the other one is availability. Okay, I don't find an option to write, I guess. Yes, I guess I can write here. Okay, and this is your integrity, and this is your availability. Sorry about the font and all that. Confidentiality, what do you understand? Confidentiality is basically keeping the information confidential and also ensuring that the right people always have access to the confidential information. If you and me are in the organization, you should have access to the confidential information and I shouldn't. If that is what the business wants, then you should be the only one having access to that information. That is confidentiality. And what is integrity? Why, while your information is being transferred from one part to the other part, you're sending your information to a friend of yours or to a co-worker, it shouldn't be modified while it is traveling. Or even if it is stationary, it shouldn't be modified. It's basically about modification or deletion of that information. So that defines the integrity of information. So while you have the information being confidential, while you have the information being integral, but if it is not available when your users want to access that particular service or that data, then what's the use of it, right? Let's say you have a Facebook page, right? It is confidential. Only you know who should access, or only the members of the Facebook page will be able to see that posts, definitely. So your information is confidential. Integrity of the information is not changed because you have set access rights. You do not you only have a couple of them who can modify the information. So integrity is fine. But when you need to access that page, if that doesn't give you any kind of a result, if that doesn't give you any kind of a result, if it is not available when you need it, what is the use of having that information confidential and integral? So it should be highly available as well. So please try to understand that your any kind of a cybersecurity product would focus on either of at least one of these areas. It could be they might be trying to make a piece of information confidential, or that is or they might be trying to ensure integrity of the application, or integrity of the information that you're talking about, or the availability. Okay, so this my friends, is a very basic area of cybersecurity, very important area of cybersecurity. And trust me, if you're starting your journey with security, you should start with this. You should first understand what is this CIA. So yeah, this is called as a CIA triad. So you can probably Google that as well after you are done with the session. Is it mandatory to learn coding before choosing cybersecurity as a career? Not necessarily. It depends on where do you want to get into. If you want to get into the red team, then I would definitely suggest that you would first go with your coding. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
what are the main challenges that a non-IT person would face during transitioning towards cybersecurity, sir?
So when you say non-IT person, are you an engineering graduate or something else?
Not into information technology, not in computer science engineer.
That doesn't matter then. So it does require a little more effort to transition into security, but it's just that you need to have a general understanding of systems. So before you try to secure systems, you need to first understand how do the systems work, or what is that system in the first place, right? So I would say just try to go with a small course. Even AntWak provides that kind of a course. Go with a small course which gives you an overall holistic view as to what is security, and then you can route yourself from there. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Yeah, okay. I heard that Linux OS is better than Windows OS for security purposes. Then why don't companies make their employees adapt to Linux OS? Okay, so this is more on a business line than a Linux OS, than a security line, because everyone in this call, I'm sure everyone has used a Windows operating system, but not a Linux operating system. So it's just the ease of access. Everyone is so used to Windows that now we have reached a level where you cannot go back to something else now. Okay. Is it mandatory? Okay, I answered this question. What are the roles we'll get for freshers in cybersecurity? What will they do? It could be a SOC, a security operations center. You could be managing a SIEM. You could be managing firewalls. You could be managing endpoint security, which is your DLP, data loss prevention, data leak prevention, your antivirus. So there are multiple roles, definitely. Yeah. And next, what tips for getting a job or cracking interview into cyber? As I'm college and I'm pursuing BCA cybersecurity. Fair. That's tips to get into security. Have a good understanding. It's basically don't go after certificates I know a lot of freshers go after certificates that, okay, this company is giving me a certificate, so I'll go there. No, try to understand concepts well, try to understand different methodologies. There are a lot, something like encryption has two types. There's something called as hashing. You don't have to understand everything in it. It's just that you need to at least know what that is and where is it used. That will be more than enough for you to crack interviews. Please share pathway to learn cybersecurity. Yeah, same. You can go with a small cybersecurity course. You have it in Cisco. That's Cisco Networking Academy, which is free. But that is a very basic level of security. You can go with AntWak cybersecurity program as well. So that's all on you. You can. It's just that you need to first have an understanding of what is security in general, and after that you can easily route yourself. But as I said, please try to identify. Uh, please try to identify the route from where you are right now if you're already learning, or rather if you're already working. Okay, so that's the pathway.
Sir, how do I decide which path to go into cybersecurity? Like, what domain in cybersecurity, like red teaming, blue team, or into SOC? How do I decide that?
No, well, you don't have to uh, decide it right away, I would say. Have an understanding, try to identify what is that area that is really interesting you, intriguing to you when you do that kind of a course. One. Second, what are your current skills? It depends on that. Do you have a very good understanding on networks? Do you have a good understanding on systems in general, like servers, networks, everything? I mean, in systems in general, or do you have a good coding skill? Are you already a Linux master? So it all depends on that. So try to identify what are all the skills for SOC. You need to have a basic networking knowledge, a basic knowledge as to how servers work, and basic knowledge on firewalls. You would get a firewall cheat sheet on the internet. You can search for that. You would have all the list of ports that we talked about. So that's SOC. Blue team is basically on the engineering side. So you have multiple areas within blue team. So you need to have, again, a general understanding of systems, but with a depth on certain areas, depending upon which area you would like to go into within your blue team. Red team is basically on trying to compromise your systems. When you're trying to compromise your system, then you definitely need tools like from a network perspective, you have something called as PuTTY, you have Linux, you can with which you can try to compromise systems. There are multiple ways by which you can do that. So yeah, it's completely on you. You need to decide. Yeah. Is degree mandatory to enter into cybersecurity? Since I have 4 years of experience in healthcare domain and my qualification is diploma +3. Well, it completely depends on the company, Sanjay. I can't tell you if it requires if it requires a degree. There are a lot of companies that might not that might be okay even if you do not have a degree. So you just have to find out. It's not an industry specific thing, but it is a company specific question. So yeah. Okay, job opportunities and penetration testing as a fresher. Yeah, there are, but a bit limited. You can find out. You can try to network on LinkedIn for penetration testing engineers. You can try to seek guidance, and yeah, there are opportunities, but not a lot within penetration testing. Yes. Should I learn a basic networking course? Learning should never stop. I firmly believe this. So you don't have to probably think about, should I learn this, should I learn that? There is always a way to security from every area. Network has a network security, and there are multiple areas within security which uses network knowledge. So yes, definitely go for it. There are a lot of cybersecurity streams. People usually say that learning cloud and IoT security is the best. There is also certifications like as a beginner. Yeah, see, so I would say CompTIA. Go with CompTIA Security Plus if you are confused. That gives you an idea as to where do you have to go. But it's completely up to you. I would say go with CompTIA. Yeah, that's what I talked about. Different fields, blue team, red team. I told you about that. So those are all the fields within cybersecurity. Most important, ethical hacker is basically someone from the red team, but they're not within the organization. Ethical hacking, I wouldn't say it's a job, but it's just the way by which they perform their job. So ethical hacker is somewhere synonymous to penetration testing. You can go with that. That's Linux.